Fears of a global trade war today splashed across the front pages of London's biggest newspapers as China sees President Trump's tariffs and raises him an additional 34%. European markets are all down this week. Here's some reactions from U.S. allies.
There seems to be no order in the disorder, no clear path through the complexity and chaos that is being created.
I deeply regret the United States' decision to impose 20% tariffs on imports from across the European Union. We see no justification for this.
The administration's tariffs have no basis in logic, and they go against the basis of our two nations partnership. This is not the act of a friend.
Joining us now is Eleanor Pringle, reporter at Fortune magazine. Her latest article says Trump's tariffs are likely to shift, but not before more pain. All right, Eleanor, most of the allies, especially in Europe, appear to be going out of their way to try to avoid a showdown. Is that why you're reporting that President Trump is likely to shift a little bit, maybe possibly on tariffs?
Very much so. I think the overriding message from Europe at the moment is that they want to negotiate. They do not want to get into a trade war with one of their most powerful allies. Whether or not that means Trump will meet them in the middle only remains to be seen. But what I will say is I interviewed President Trump's former Commerce Secretary, Wilbur Ross, who served in his first administration. And Secretary Ross made the point very succinctly that in this second administration, President Trump will be all the more confident. He knows the mechanics of Washington. He knows some of these players on the global stage. But that works both ways. Ursula von der Leyen, who's the president of the European Commission, has worked with President Trump before. So an optimist might suggest that global leaders will now know better how to align the interests of their nations and the economic packages that they're putting together with the aims that President Trump is trying to achieve.
I mean, behind closed doors, and the ones I've spoken to off the record or even on background have been very critical of this. But some EU leaders are even being critical in public. The Belgian prime minister calls a U.S. versus EU trade war, quote, wealth-destroying madness, adding, quote, stupidity should not be met with stupidity. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Europe and having to kind of negotiate with some of these countries on other issues the week right after these tariffs were announced. How's that going?
I mean, that is not particularly my area of expertise. What I would echo is that I think there has been this sentiment that April 2nd will be something of a deadline, something to work towards. This is the starting block. This is setting the board. This is putting everything out on the table. And what I am hearing from the economists I'm speaking to is thus far, these tariffs have very much been about the imports of goods. I was speaking to a Harvard professor earlier this week who made the point that the US is a net exporter of services, and we're not even having that conversation yet. And what is very interesting about the relationship between the US and the EU is that the US is a net exporter. It holds the surplus when it comes to services. And the US the EU, my apologies, does have the ability in this negotiation to be able to level some duties on services. I think, Goldman Sachs wrote in a note earlier this week that really would be a last resort because the US is so dominant when it comes to services. But they do have that weapon in their armory this time around.
So how much pain do analysts seem to believe consumers both in the U.S. and Europe can take before this starts to turn around?
I mean, in what I wrote, that note from UBS, it sees a lot of market volatility in Q2 and Q3. When you look at the expectations of consumers, for example, into the next year, the inflation expectations are only going up and up and up. We're not seeing such a shift on 5-year inflation expectations. So I think that consumers do perhaps hold out some hope that these tariffs are going to be negotiated down. Perhaps they might change under the next administration. So I think only time can tell.
All right, well, hang in there. Eleanor Pringle, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.